In this module, we are going to learn about the effective use of rubrics. Our essential question is, how can I authentically assess students in such a way that it improves students' end products, increases students' learning, and clearly articulates expectations for learning? By the end of this session, we hope you know the components of a rubric, what makes an effective rubric, and what makes an ineffective rubric. We want you to understand the benefits of using rubric and the distinction between grading and assessing. By the end of this session, we hope that you are able to design a rubric using the CRY method and use rubrics effectively to communicate standards and levels of expectations. Let's begin by understanding what is a rubric. Rubrics show levels of quality. They communicate standards. They tell students expectations for the assessment. They are not checklists, and they include dimensions, indicators, and a rating scale. Let's look more closely at the parts of a rubric. The criteria, sometimes referred to as dimensions, encompasses the knowledge, skills, and understanding to be assessed. The rating are the scales that are used to discriminate among the various levels of performance. And the indicators specify the evidence used to judge the degree to which the dimension is mastered. There are several advantages to using a rubric. Rubrics help lower student anxiety. They provide specific feedback. They provide a way to communicate expectations and progress towards those expectations. They ensure that student work is judged against the standard, and they lead students towards quality work. Let's watch this video on the National Hand Clapping Institute.
Okay. All right, guys, we are going to do an activity today on hand clapping. So what I'd like is I'm going to let you guys talk amongst yourselves for a second about how you want to present. And I'm going to choose one group to go first in showing your hand clap to me. And then I'm going to kind of give you some feedback from there. Okay, so let me give you about 10 seconds to talk to the people at your table. And then I will pick a volunteer who would like to go first. Okay? Not necessarily. I don't want to give you guys any more information than it's just whatever you know about clapping, that's all I want you guys to do. No, it's just whatever, anything with clapping. It doesn't have to be with the classroom. It could be with a beat.
Don't spoil it.
Okay.
Amazing. Yeah. Is that possible?
We could do
Well, I remember this now. Yeah, this is good. This is good. Okay. Now let's go with your ideas.
Okay, so I think that's giving you guys enough time. So I'm going to go ahead and choose a volunteer to go first. I think we're going to pick these ladies right here. Okay, so give us your clap. All right, very good. Was that a clap? Was that what I asked for? Mm-hmm. It was a clap. However, you don't pass the assessment because what I was looking for was a clap with rhythm. I'm so sorry to have to tell you that. I know. I'm sorry. It's just too bad. Okay, so who would like to try to go next? You guys? Okay, let's give it a shot. Okay, that was good. That clap had rhythm, and I was looking for a clap with rhythm. However, I was also looking for a little bit more. I'm going to ask you guys to go next. So before you go, I'm going to give you a rubric that I want you to look at. And I'll give you guys a couple of seconds if you need to regroup before you perform. But take a look at the rubric first. Okay, so are you ladies ready? Okay, let's just give it a try. Okay, that was good. That was actually exactly what I was looking for. Now let me ask you guys something. If I had given you the rubric first, would you have given me what I was asking for?
Definitely.
Right. But all I did was I just said, give me a random clapping. When you think of clapping, you just think of maybe a round of applause like this table did or some kind of rhythm. But if you had known that I was asking for use of hands and feet, you probably would have given it to me. If you knew that I was asking for repetition, you probably would have given it to me. So we're just using that little activity to show and demonstrate the use of rubrics.
There are a couple things I hope you noticed in this video. The first one is the power of feedback. The first group virtually received no information about what they were supposed to do, and they didn't get any feedback about how they were doing it until after they showed their clapping. But the verbal feedback that was given to the first group automatically helped the second group make an improvement. The third group gave me exactly what I was looking for because they received the rubric ahead of time, which made the expectations for the assessment clear. When the students know what is expected, they will perform at a much higher level. Let's look at the steps in designing a rubric. First, you want to determine the focus of your assessment. Determine how many categories are necessary to describe the knowledge, skills, and processes of the task. Describe the specific observable actions, processes, and/or attitudes that would indicate progress towards and attainment of the goal. Determine how many levels of performance are appropriate for the task. And finally, determine the format to communicate the rubric. Effective rubrics are useful tools. They show level of quality of a performance of a task. They communicate standards clearly and specifically. They are given to students before the assessment to set clear expectations. They are consistent and reliable, and they use content that matches standards and instructional emphasis. What makes a rubric ineffective? If they're too wordy so that no one can understand the criteria or indicators, let alone use them for a grade, they are an ineffective rubric. Rubrics are also not checklists. They don't judge work against other items of work, and they shouldn't judge the wrong things so that the students can jump through hoops to get a good grade. According to Grant Wiggins, what is to be assessed should be clear and explicit to all students. There should be no more surprises, and rubrics must accompany all major assignments and assessments. The CRY method is a simple way of remembering the parts of an effective rubric. You have the criteria, which is the desired student outcome or dimension to be assessed. You have the ratings, which are the levels of performance, and you have the indicators, what levels define the criteria. Here are some useful websites that can help you design your own rubric. As we put it all together, take a look at this photo taken on vacation. Jot down a few words on how you think the vacation went based on this photo. Now let's take a look at a photo album of the entire vacation. Have your thoughts on the vacation changed after seeing the bigger picture? If so, then you are seeing the difference between grading and assessment. A grade, like a photo, is a snapshot that shows student performance in a single instance. Assessment, like a photo album, shows the big picture, the ups and downs a student might have faced throughout the learning process, and the end product.